What's up guys, this is Ryu from Sargatanis and I'm here to bring you some brief warrior rundowns on the new abilities from patch 2.1. Now just a little disclaimer, I won't be naming or talking about every single new ability or all the abilities in general, just a few that will be used in theory crafting ideas for warrior mitigation. Now this segment's going to have to be split up into two different videos because it's going to be kind of sizable and I'd like to get two videos to cover exactly what I want to put out there. It's not going to be a lot of information, it's just a lot of concrete information about a few abilities. So it's not everything a warrior is going to be doing or everything about warrior abilities. I just want to be very concrete and in-depth with 5 main abilities and just a few mechanics. So in this short segment, 5 featured abilities will be talked about: Vengeance, Thrill of Battle, Storm's Path, Inner Beast, and Holmgang. I'll also be touching up just a little bit over how Stacks of Wrath work, as well as the small remake to Defiance. First off, Vengeance. Now Vengeance is a buff, it lasts for 15 seconds and has a 120-second recast. It also grants a Wrath of Stack when used with Defiance, which obviously lasts 30 seconds due to the base mechanic of how Wrath works. Now this ability delivers an attack with a potency of 50 every time you suffer physical damage. Basically it's a counterattack. The way this will be remade in 2.1 is by simply adding the fact that 30% damage will be reduced for 15 seconds while the buff is actually activated. Now that being said, when you factor in the 15-second duration with the 120-second cooldown, you basically have a 105-second flat cooldown rate due to the fact that you subtract the actual duration of the effect, which means every 1 minute and 45 seconds this ability will be usable. Next ability is Thrill of Battle. Thrill of Battle does not act like your other mitigation abilities. It actually does not add any defense and it does not nullify any damage taken. What it does is that it actually increases your max HP by 20%, as well as restoring that amount increased. Meaning, if you have 1000 HP, you pop Thrill of Battle, you will increase your HP by 200. That small amount, you will be healed. Meaning, if you're down to about 500 health and you pop Thrill of Battle, you will gain 200 HP, going back up to 700 HP. Now this is actually on a 10-second duration with a 120-second recast timer. In 2.1, however, this duration will be increased by a whopping 10 more seconds, making it a 20-second duration, with the 120-second recast potentially making this ability usable every 100 seconds. Now next up is Storm's Path, the most effectively useless ability that a warrior has in his arsenal, as of 2.0 that is. As of 2.1, it's possibly one of the best abilities that you'll be using in your combinations. Now in 2.0, what this does is it does mediocre combo potency damage, meaning it only does 250 damage opposed to your Butcher's Block doing 300, and your Storm's Eye, which actually does 270 potency, as well as reducing the slashing resistance of the mob. Now I will add that your Storm's Path does do an additional effect, which is absorbing 50% of the damage you dealt as HP, which means you are healing yourself for an amazing amount of 50 to 200, depending on what buff you're using or how many people are in the party, etc., etc. Now the only reason why I add that because I know people are going to be sticklers about it, so blah, there you go. Now in 2.1, Storm's Path is actually going to do a lot more. It's going to reduce the damage dealt by enemies for a period of time. Now, we don't actually know the values yet because Square Enix has not disclosed that information, but that potentially makes it one of your greatest combo abilities because every time you combo it, you're going to be, reducing the damage you have been dealt by your enemies, thus making the warrior a more complex class to play because now you have 3 different combinations you will be using. So that actually makes it more interesting for me. But anyways, moving on. Now, this next ability hits you pretty hard if you're a warrior or a warrior player, fanatic, whatever. Now, Inner Beast, a warrior's greatest ability, some might say, is actually being remade more than nerfed. Now, a lot of people are telling me, is this being nerfed because of the healing percentage that you're receiving? It is, but it isn't. Now, what it does in 2.0 is currently it deals 300 potency damage, which is a huge chunk of damage, and it also ignores the damage penalty by Defiance. Now in 2.0 it heals for 300% of the damage dealt, so if you do land a crit, theoretically you can heal yourself for a good amount, about 1500 to even 2000 HP. Now in 2.1, however, this ability will actually be reduced down to 100% healing, but there's a slight catch to it. Now every time you use Inner Beast, you will receive a 20% damage reduction buff, which lasts for 6 seconds. Now couple that with how fast you're actually attacking, what your global cooldown is, how fast you're getting stacks of Wrath, and that can potentially be 20% damage reduction every 12 or so seconds. I'll explain more about the Wrath stacks and how skill speed might help, and just some basic theory crafted ideas towards the end of this video. Lastly, we have Holmgang. Now, Holmgang, aside from what I said about Storm's Path being the most useless ability, Holmgang was something that you pretty much never had on your bars. Reason being is because all it really does is bind both you and the target for 6 seconds and has a huge cooldown of 180 seconds. Now, there are very, very minimal instances where you can use this. A good example is the second boss in Wanderer's Palace, the Flan boss. You can actually use it on the Flan boss when it targets somebody to keep it from actually running around and targeting the other people and potentially killing them. Now, this ability is actually going to be one of your main abilities for not dying in 2.1. They're changing it so basically whenever you use it, you do not go below 1 HP for the duration of the buff. Meaning for 6 seconds, you cannot go below 1 HP. This is probably a way to kind of put Warrior up to par with Paladin's Hollow Ground ability, which is amazing. So now we're going to actually see a big difference in Warrior, because you take all of these mitigation abilities, factoring in this whole new ability, which makes you not invulnerable, but more so immortal, because you do still take damage, and it is kind of iffy using it because, like I said, it's 6 seconds and you'll be at 1 HP, so if they don't heal you back up, if your healer doesn't bring you back up to full or anywhere past at least 50% HP, depending on what the fight is, you can potentially just die immediately after this buff wears off. So that about covers it for the first portion of this video. We talked about the 5 abilities, and now we're just going to wrap this up and check out my next video, and I'll start explaining some theory crafting and how you can implement your abilities and just become a warrior of amazement. Thanks, guys.